some of the most beautiful fight cinematography ever put to the HBO Max screen, a little nod to niche nonsense from George's books, an ominously incestuous kiss, some confoundingly harebrained changes to Fire and Blood, along with a pinch of whoopsies and my badsies for flavor? Yeah, I'm thinking we're back. House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 1 is titled Salt and Sea, Fire and Blood. No spoilers for the future of House of the Dragon, but if I do, I'll warn you first. I've really got nothing new to say about this tapestry title sequence. My only note is that it's still wrong. Visenya is riding Meraxes, and Rhaenys is riding Vhagar. Does it matter that if you're going to visually depict the Conqueror sisters for the first time ever, you'd want to make sure you've got Visenya's most defining physical attribute adapted properly? Nah. Sorry for being petty off rip, but it's who I am at this point. I'll be less miserable in a moment. Oh hey, who's that? Could it be? Did they decide last minute to adapt Nettles? Oh, it's just Rhaena. That's fine too, that's alright. You don't want Rhaena in the Vale all season long, so instead of inventing side plots for her there, or just forgetting about her for a whole season, hey, remember when Game of Thrones left Bran off-screen for the entirety of Season 5 because that's what the story called for? They decided to merge Rhaena with Nettles. I'm over it at this point, it's far from the biggest issue with this adaptation, but if Game of Thrones Season 5 is mogging you on book accuracy, we've got problems. Anywho, this guy is from House Staunton of Rook's Rest. Lord Staunton died there when Vhagar and Sunfire breathed on it last season, so this fellow is probably not too happy with King Aegon, but is willing to set his grievance aside to earn a big reward from Rhaenyra. Who is this guy? Aegon's Kingsguard only consists of 4 known entities at this point. That's Sir Rickard Thorne, Sir Eddard Waters, Sir Martin Rain, and Hand of the King Sir Criston Cole. Eric Cargill and Leon Estermont both died last season, so this fellow is one of the remaining 3. He could be Sir Giles Belgrave, although I imagined him a bit older from Doug Wheatley's official illustrations. He could certainly be Sir Marston Waters, since in Fire and Blood, Marston's the one who smuggles Aegon away from the city, not Larys himself. Perhaps they've simplified that for the show, and Marston Waters is this Kingsguard right here. And this was a really nice touch of the rare tell but don't show rule of filmmaking. Since the Kingsguard tells Alicent that the king requires a meeting, and we the audience already know that Aegon is no longer present, we can conclude that Aemond has named himself king without them wasting screen time on Aemond discovering Aegon's missing, deliberating about what to do, etc, etc. Although, I do wish they left the crown behind for Aemond, and I wish the crown resembled the Conqueror's crown from the books. And I'm being petty again, I just can't help myself. Here's Daemon, wearing the same suit of armor he's had for 25 years, winning the Battle of the Red Fork. I loved this interaction between Daemon and Lord Oscar Tully. Daemon wants to let Caraxes consume all the corpses and chase after the Lannisters, but Oscar wants to bury his dead. Technically, Daemon's right. His method is quicker and prevents the spread of disease. We're seeing a facet of Daemon's characterization these writers have beat us over the head with, but I appreciate the consistency. That Daemon possesses a great military mind, but isn't suited for actual rule and diplomacy because he's got no patience for the way other people do things.
We have come to die for the Dragon Queen!
Now, I don't say this lightly, but it's peak. It's simply peak. This is Roderick Dustin, or Roddy the Ruin, saying his famous line from the book that's meant to be delivered to Sabbatha Frey. But unfortunately, she's an old lady in this adaptation, and not a badass sapphic warrior. But I digress. The Northmen look great. Gwaine Hightower is upset that their men are raping. Criston Cole doesn't really care because the wars turned him into a doomer, basically. Just last episode, Cole had this great little monologue in the wake of Rook's Rest, saying, "You saw what I saw. The dragons dance, and men are like dust under their feet. We march now toward our annihilation. To die will be a kind of relief." Listen, I'm a fan of this turn in Cole's character. The cocky, spiteful Kingsguard who gets his worldview shattered by participating in dragon warfare. And now he's just resigned to it until his death relieves him. But I think iterating it again in the premiere of Season 3 is just redundant. Clearly, this scene was meant to come one episode later to last season's finale, but HBO cut the budget and episode 209 became episode 301, and Cole is doing and saying the exact same thing as the last time we saw him, which is 2 years ago for us. Look to the sky, to the horizon. Doom and ruin surround us. We will all become beasts before our end. If they keep giving Cole these philosophizing, wistful monologues, it'll get stale pretty fast. But to the writer's credit, it seems like they made Cole somewhat convinced by Gwain's argument to stick to their knightly principles. So hopefully Kristen is a bit less mopey the next time we see him. Ulf and Hugh and Adam are on the Isle of Faces, this tiny island right next to Harrenhal. If you forgot, Ulf is Balon the Brave's bastard, and thus Viserys and Daemon's half-brother. Hugh is Sarah Targaryen's bastard, King Jaehaerys' exiled daughter, and thus his grandson. And Adam is Corlys Valerion's bastard, possessing dragon blood from somewhere in their Valyrian ancestry. Apparently, Rhaenyra's given them orders to stake the place out for Aemond, since Alicent told Rhaenyra last episode that Aemond would be joining Criston Cole on their march to Harrenhal. 3 dragons, all of which are old and big and fight-capable, should be able to defeat Vhagar, despite her size. I do like how they're sowing a bit of doubt in Ulf, that he's not satisfied with his position just because he's got a dragon. He wants more respect and nobility. Later, we see Hugh doubting Rhaenyra as well, wondering if Aemond was attacking Dragonstone in their absence. And he'll soon realize that his intuition was correct, only it was the Triarchy attacking, not Aemond. It seems that Adam is the only Dragonseed who is completely loyal. Also, Ulf sees a green man, which is a cool reference. Daemon saw one at Harrenhal last season as well. The Isle of Faces is the most religiously significant place in Westeros for the old gods. All the trees there should be weirwoods, with faces carved into them, but sadly we don't see any of those. The Isle of Faces is where the Children of the Forest and the First Men were said to have signed a pact to end their fighting. So Alicent writes a letter to her cousin, Lord Ormond Hightower, who's got the Green's largest standing army. She tells him to sit still and wait for Aemond to come join him, which is obviously a lie. Alicent doesn't want his big-ass army coming to impede Rhaenyra's overtaking of King's Landing. Despite what she tells Aemond, Alicent is still staunchly pro-Rhaenyra. I couldn't fathom those words coming out of my mouth when House of the Dragon began. Probably the second most important character in the entire story, one half of the princess and the queen that George based all of this on, has been completely manhandled, and not even in a way that I can say, it's not for me, but I see what they're going for. I don't see what they're going for. As recently as 6 episodes ago, and that's after her grandson was murdered on Daemon's orders, she was still pro-Aegon. She told Aegon that she loves him when she made him king on the basis of Viserys' final words. And we have not been given a satisfactory reason, any new information that Alicent has learned about her sons that would make her change her mind again in favor of Rhaenyra. Aegon and Aemond are the same people they were when Alicent was on their side, and now she's spinning Aemond this yarn about how he should have been born first, how he's the more capable son, just to trick him into flying away to his doom so that Rhaenyra can have the throne. That's my criticism, and I won't harp on it every episode from here on out. Probably. It is very obvious ever since the first season, the writers are creating a mirror between Daemon and Aemond, the two violent rogues of their respective teams. So just as Daemon experienced a hallucination in Harrenhal of himself having sex with his own mother, Alyssa Targaryen, whom he never really knew before she died, they gave Aemond mother issues as well. We saw that last season in the brothel with Sylvie, basically cradling him like a son, but sexually, you know? And now we're just going full throttle. Honestly, it's weird as hell, but it's consistent with Aemond's characterization, and I'm not gonna make fun of it. I'm actually curious now how they'll up the ante in Harrenhal, presuming that Aemond will have visions thanks to Alice Rivers and the weirwoody magic just like Daemon had. Will he fornicate Alicent in a dream, or perhaps something even weirder? Take risks, I'm here for it. By the way, what's Ormond whiffing on here? Some sort of medieval smelling salts? Is that drugs? It's so fancy and cool looking. Little orb of psychoactive chemicals. Vaporized milk of the poppy, perhaps? I want some, is my point. I'd like to have some. This is bold John Roxton beside him. They got his sigil spot on, so that's nice. That huge sword on his back is Orphan Maker, and it's Valyrian steel. Pay attention to John Roxton, cause he'll be relevant in the future. Alright, time to talk about the Battle of the Gullet. Right off the bat, it's wrong. but that doesn't bother me so much. In the book, it's supposed to be Ulf, Hugh, Adam, and Nettles, who doesn't exist in the show, who fight the Triarchy with the Valerian fleet, until Jace joins them later. In the show, it's just the Triarchy's fleet versus the Valerian fleet until Jace and Baela join in, and Sheepstealer will talk about it. My issue is regarding Rhaenyra, and the show's reason for her non-involvement. In the book, Rhaenyra is still out of commission with grief over the devastating and traumatic death of Lucerys. Jace appoints Corlys the Hand of the Queen and basically rules Team Black at this point. I guess the writers wanted to avoid the misogynistic trope of making the female character emotional and prioritizing grief over valor, because a big strong man would keep fighting in her situation. But instead, they have just taken a female character's agency away again, and beat us over the head with their consistent theme of men being too eager to fight, that Jace was so eager to prove himself that he locked his own mother away in a tower. That's my uncharitable view. My charitable view would be that Rhaenyra did want to fight, so at least the writers have dropped her whole anti-violence shtick that she was doing last season, that nonsense about the cost of dragon warfare and Rhaenyra being hesitant to fight for her throne. Those concerns are behind her, and Rhaenyra is now ready to fight personally and take Aegon's head, etc. yada yada. My critique is pretty simple. It's just not compelling or engaging for your main character, who you blatantly want us to root for, is continuously barred from participating in her own story. I get the commentary you're making on gender roles, but it just shouldn't impact the plot this severely. It's okay for a mother to be so beset with grief over the death of her father, her son, and her stillborn daughter within days of each other. That's enough trauma to warrant Rhaenyra staying back, until coming into the fold after Jace dies as well. I'm willing to admit when show better than book, but in this case, book better than show. I also thought Rhaenyra's line about having a weak body but the heart of a king was a little cringy, only because it's ripped straight from a real-life speech by Queen Elizabeth I of England at the Battle of Tilbury in 1588. She said, "I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king."
I may appear to have the weak and feeble body of a woman, but I possess the heart and spirit of a king.
I mean, it's a relevant line for Rhaenyra and not out of place at all, so I don't have an actual problem with it. Just a little on the nose is all. The thing with Rhaena and Sheepstealer is more reiteration of the theme that dragons are not slaves, that just because Sheepstealer's been bound to Rhaena for, a few hours, doesn't mean he'll obey every command, especially since he's been wild and riderless his entire life. I don't love how Rhaena's accidental fire attack on Jace is the reason Jace was flying low and got murked by the Mirish crossbows, but it's pretty clear these writers like dragon-induced accidents. My nerdy, nitpicky issue with the Battle of the Gullet is actually the one I'm most passionate about. It's spoilery though, so skip ahead to this timestamp if you want. In the book, Jace puts his brothers Aegon and Viserys on a ship called the Gay Abandon, headed for safety in Pentos. The Battle of the Gullet begins when that ship is taken. Viserys becomes a captive of Shirako Lohar, and Aegon has to fly away to Dragonstone on a dying storm cloud. This sequence is critically crucial to the development of Aegon the Dragonbane, but ever since they aged the brothers down so much last season, it's pretty obvious HBO has no plans to adapt the Regency or Aegon's reign. It wouldn't be as compelling as massive dragon warfare, so I see why they don't want to adapt that part of Targaryen history. But that part of my brain that's anal about A Song of Ice and Fire lore is just very annoyed at the removal of Aegon and Viserys. Why even have them in the show in the first place? You already cut Maelor. Both of them are future kings, for crying out loud, the continuation of Rhaenyra's bloodline that ultimately leads to Daenerys. And the Dragonbane is just one of my favorite characters, so it sucks we'll never see his story adapted. To be clear, Fire and Blood doesn't specify what Jace was doing when Vermax got grappled, so it's perfectly plausible that he was distracted by a rogue dragon. Nettles and Sheepstealer were at the Gullet in the book, so maybe the same thing occurred, just with Nettles instead of Rhaena? I mean, I would bet my entire measly net worth that isn't what happened in the book, but my point is that if you didn't like that part of the episode, it shouldn't be because it breaks book canon, necessarily, except for the Rhaena-Nettles swap. Also, Jace's death is exactly how I've always pictured it, and really similar to this great official artwork by Tamaz Jedrzejczyk. This episode's spectacle and shot composition were spectacular, as usual. Alright, that's it for episode 1. Same time next week for my Chris view of episode 2. This video is brought to you by my Patreon, so if you like my channel and you want to support me directly, and you want perks like early access to every video and exclusive videos like my recent doomed playthrough of Aegon's Conquest on Crusader Kings 2, then I'd be delighted if you join. It's $5 per month, and I'd like to thank everybody whose name is on screen, and thank you as well for watching. Alright, love you, bye.